Welcome to the WolfPack Sports Wire, a podcast from the athletic department at Whitefield Academy. Whitefield Academy is a Christ-centered pre-K through 12 college preparatory school located in Smyrna, Georgia. On this show, we highlight our hardworking coaches and student athletes who are excelling in and out of competition. Welcome back to the WolfPack Sports Wire. I'm your host, Jack Hunter. We turn the calendar now to November. It's the week of November 3rd, and today is episode 12 of the show. Winter sports teams have been practicing hard for a few weeks and are now beginning competition, so we'll start taking time on the show over the next few weeks to preview our winter teams. On today's show, we'll be joined by Whitefield head football coach Robert Walsh following a tough loss in the region championship game to Fellowship Christian and as the team prepares for the state playoffs. Afterwards, we'll be joined by head boys basketball coach Greg Blythe to discuss the season ahead. First, here's Coach Walsh. Coach Walsh, how are you doing today?
Doing all right, Jack. It was a tough weekend after that loss, but we got bigger things ahead of us with the state playoffs, and looking forward to that. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and I'm fortunate to be here on a big day today. Today is your birthday. It's a Monday here, November 3rd. So by the time you guys are listening to this, it's not his birthday anymore, but good news, it's still his birthday week. So make sure to reach out to Coach Walsh and let him know. You have any big birthday plans this week? Anything you plan on doing?
No. Once you start having kids and stuff at home, it just turns into another day for you. But my wife and my girls do a good job of making me feel special. And just happy to have another year, and God has blessed me with that. So try to make the most of it.
All right. Well, that's great. So let's talk about the football game. So last Friday, as we mentioned, losing 31-7 to Fellowship. Fellowship ended up getting the number one seed in the power rankings in the playoff bracket. Obviously, a really strong team. What were your overall thoughts on the game as you were reflecting on it afterwards?
I was extremely proud of the way our defense played. They gave up two big plays. But other than that, Fellowship had to earn every yard that they got Friday night. Unfortunately, offensively, we didn't get things going the way we have, and we didn't play good complementary football with our defense Friday night, but extremely proud of the way our defense played, because that team's been averaging well over 40 points a game, and it was a 21-7 football game with about 9 minutes to go there. Had a chance, forced them in a 3rd and long, got an unfortunate penalty there that gave them an automatic first down. It was a borderline call, and they were able to get a field goal to make it 24-7. So we were kind of playing catch up there and trying to force things offensively to make it that 31-7 final. But extremely proud of our defense. Yeah,
and to add on to that, the defense gave up a touchdown late in the second quarter to make it 21-7, and then the next time Fellowship scored was that field goal with about 7 or 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and then they added on a late touchdown after they got some good field position. So the defense in the second half basically shut them down. How were they able to respond, especially after early giving up some gash run plays and match the physicality and keep their head in the game and keep your team in the game?
That was one thing that I enjoyed watching when I watched the game back. It was just we matched Fellowship's physicality on the defensive side of the ball. They got CJ Givers, he's committed to Duke to go play running back in the ACC, and then you got their quarterback, who's extremely physical runner as well, going to Georgia Southern. Just matching the physicality, the gang tackling that we were doing. A couple guys that stood out on film for us. Henry Tidwell had an awesome game. William Dukes, of course, remains consistent for us on the defensive line. And then a sophomore, Thomas Dickey, up front, did an unbelievable job. But, our whole defense as a group did a really good job. Jamison White, standing in the middle of our defense, did a good job leading them.
Yeah, and Fellowship team that really, as you mentioned last week, they'll line up in the I formation, play some big boy football. How gratifying is it for you to have your team go up against the number one ranked team in the classification and go toe-to-toe with them from a physicality perspective, front seven? I bet that's got to make you feel good about where your defense is at going forward.
Yeah, there's I hate moral victories, but I think our boys realize now, talking to a few of them this morning, how close we truly are to the top teams in our classification. I think they realize we're right there. We can play with anybody on any given Friday night. We just got to be able to put a complete game together and play better complementary football.
Yeah, and offensively, you got to give a lot of credit to Fellowship's defense. This was the toughest offensive game of the season for us, putting up just 7 points. How big were those 2 plays early on in the game, that fake punt that didn't go our way, and then that kind of 4th and 2 tush push, pack push that we couldn't get across the line? How big were those in terms of kind of shifting the momentum of the game early on?
The fake punt, it was open. It was there. Cole felt like he had to make a perfect throw to Harrison on that play. Felt like there was a defender pretty close to Harrison. We watched it on the sideline, and then Cole took full ownership. He was like, man, I should have just played catch and threw it to him. We would have had a first down there. But, it's good to practice those things in a live game situation versus practice. So, you live and you learn from those mistakes, and we'll move on from it. And then the tush push, it was a communication error. We were going, the sugar huddle, and we were going to go freeze, and I was going to call a timeout, and then we were going to kind of talk about what we liked in that situation. Just some miscommunication, and we end up snapping the ball, and it was just a mistake that happened. And, we had several mistakes Friday night, jumping off sides on offense, doing things we historically have not done this season. So we just got to learn from those moments. As a coach, I'll take full responsibility for it. As the saying goes, players win games and coaches lose them. And, I'll take full responsibility for that. We lost that game because of decisions and mistakes I didn't have our boys prepared for.
Yeah, and you talk about wanting to play with tempo last week, and if anybody that watched the game can see why, in the sense of Fellowship's defense, they were moving guys all around. They were giving a lot of different looks. They had a lot of snaps where they didn't have anybody with their hand in the dirt. They were just standing up everybody at the line. How did you try to balance, or how can you try to balance playing with that fast tempo with also trying to hold on to the ball a little bit? Because especially Fellowship's defense, they were getting some stops, and you guys were running into having to really, run a few plays and then punt, and weren't able to kind of keep the ball for extended periods of time early.
I think it's a tough situation for us. Luckily, our defense did a really good job Friday night, but we're trying to catch them out of position. Try to gain an advantage on them. They have a lot of good players over there. And if we allow them to do everything they want to defensively, I think it would give us a lot of trouble. So, you got to try to find the balance as a coach. We tried to freeze them, try to see what they were doing, but then that gave them an opportunity to change the look, and I may have called a play versus the previous look. So, you're trying to – it's a cat and mouse game. Whoever has a marker last is going to win. And they did a good job. And, we unfortunately had too many 3 and outs and didn't do what we needed to do to be successful.
Yeah, the good news is you have a lot of time between now and your next playoff game. And you have, I'm sure, a lot of teaching moments in practice and a good bit of time to teach that. What are some of the biggest things that are going to be points of emphasis in practice in these upcoming weeks?
I told the O-line on Friday night we have to do a better job getting our second step in the ground so we can redirect and block guys. Friday that happened a lot where we took our first step and that second step wasn't into the ground fast enough, and they were crossing our face and getting upfield and creating penetration against our outside zone. So we're going to work a lot, fundamentals, steps as an offense line. Quarterback, receivers, we need to get to where we're on the same page on some of those deep shots. The second play of the game, we have a great play, and we're not on the same page as a quarterback and receiver. So we have to clean those things up, work on some fundamentals defensively, continue to work on tackling. I think we're going to focus a lot on takeaway circuits this week and next week, just because Fellowship, they did have success running the ball, but that ball was exposed a lot when they were getting hit by the first guy, and I felt like we had opportunities to punch that ball out and create some takeaways, and we didn't do that. So that needs to be a point of emphasis for our defense. So those are some of the things that we need to clean up going forward before we match up with Aquinas or Darlington on November 21st.
Yeah, you have 3 weeks in between your region championship game last Friday and your first playoff game. Part of that is because of the division we play in, the private division. Everybody's got a week off this week with less teams being in the playoffs. And then we have a bye week for good regular season this year, and again, being the 5th team in. But what's the difficulty of playing a long schedule, playing 10 games with 2 bye weeks, and then now you have 3 weeks in between now and the most important game of your season?
You're dealing with 14 to 18-year-old boys, and trying to keep their focus and their attention is going to be the biggest job of our coaching staff over this next 3 weeks. I think our seniors definitely realize the opportunity that lies ahead to do something that no team in Whitefield's history has ever done, which is make the quarterfinals. And then at that point, it's about luck. Does the ball bounce your way? Do you have an opportunity to upset somebody that nobody thinks you can upset? I feel like we're playing good football. We didn't play a complete game this past Friday, but I feel like our kids are confident enough and believe in what we have out in front of us.
Yeah, and so usually in a week of practice, a lot of it is probably, watching the tape from the week before and then already getting into next week's matchup, dealing with guys that are kind of banged up and trying to get them to play in the next week's game. Now you have this tough physical game, but then you have a lot of time between now and in your first playoff game. How do you think practice is going to be a little bit different, or where are some areas that you guys can really further develop the team now with this time?
We're going to have to look at depth. We did get hit with a few injuries this past Friday, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So we're going to have to make sure we have guys that are those number 2s in positions that are ready to go. They're coached up well. They understand our scheme. Obviously they're a number 2. So they're not as good as our starters right now, but we got to try to, over this next 3 weeks, to close that gap as much as possible, just in case we need those guys. That's some stuff that we need to clean up and work on definitely over the next 3 weeks, as well as our passing game. We got to continue to work on that. That's got to be an element that we have to take advantage of, because people are going to load the box because of our run game.
Yeah, and lastly, the bracket got released yesterday, so Sunday, and we're the number 5 team. We're in kind of the bottom left quadrant of the bracket. We're going to play the winner of Aquinas versus Darlington in 2 weeks, and then we've got some other good teams down on the bottom side of the bracket. When you saw the bracket release, what are your thoughts on the quadrant that we have and just overall how things got seeded?
It's always interesting just looking at how the power rankings play out. Obviously, it's not a perfect system, but I think it does a pretty good job of separating the teams that, had great seasons and played well throughout the whole season, maybe not just one game or 2. So when I saw the bracket, I looked at it and saw Aquinas and Darlington. I know Coach Leonard at Aquinas. I was in the same region with him when I was at Savannah Christian. Aquinas, they're a very well-coached team. They're a tough team. They're going to be gritty. Darlington, we know about them. Coach Groves, the kind of job he does over the last 3 years we've played them. They're going to be a scrappy bunch as well. I just look at those 2 teams right now. I don't really try to get too far ahead of that, just because, I don't want our boys getting ahead of that first game in the playoffs. Yeah,
well, that sounds good. So you said Whitefield is trying to make history, trying to make it to the Elite Eight the first time, and that'll be a good quest for us. They say if you're playing football over Thanksgiving, you're doing something right. So hopefully we can get there. And Coach, appreciate your time today, and we'll talk to you next week.
I appreciate it. Go Pack.
Our next guest is head boys basketball coach Greg Blythe. Coach Blythe is in his 3rd season as our head coach, and he's been hard at work coaching up this team as they try and build on a 14-13 season from last year. Here's our conversation. Coach, thanks for joining us on the program today. How are you doing?
Wonderful, Jack. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, before we talk basketball, I do want to say to the listeners out there at home, a lot goes into this podcast behind the scenes, and Greg has been a great help to the show as our sports information director. He oftentimes sits in on these interviews. We're doing this interview in his office, which we record a lot of our interviews in this office. So, Coach, how does it feel to be kind of on the program now when you've been behind the scenes for so long?
It's a lot different. I was talking to some of your former guests with CC and some of the other coaches, and I was just telling them how when I'm talking to them, having them be at ease to be on the podcast, and then I was feeling a little nervous to be in the hot seat today.
So you're coming into your third season now. You won 10 games your first year, 14 games your second year, and obviously you're looking to build on that this year. How are you going to try to build in your third year to take that next step?
Yeah, I think the win-loss total doesn't necessarily tell the story. While, for an outsider or anyone that just looks up the program, they can see trending upwards. Scheduling can have a part of that as well. So this year, we've scheduled some bigger schools. We've scheduled some tougher opposition. And so I don't necessarily have a goal from a win-loss perspective, but I do feel like overall program is going to be trending upwards.
Yeah, the last few years you've had kind of a young team. And now the benefit of that is that you've got a lot of experience coming back. You got 5 seniors, and then you got even more guys that have been playing on varsity for a few years. What's going to be the benefit of that this year in terms of starting a season with guys that have been with you for a little bit and know the system?
Well, that's what we've talked about. We talked about that within June when we were doing our June workouts and doing the summer leagues and stuff. It's like if it's continuing to be a coach-led team, then we're not going to be as good as we can be. So these players, 5 seniors that are going into their third year of playing varsity, they need to be the leaders of the team. They need to be the voice. It doesn't need to be the coaches. And if it is the coaches, then we're not going to maximize what we can do. But I love this group of seniors, and I feel that they're going to be the ones that are going to hold the standard, perform above the line, and just continue the growth of the program.
All right, so this is kind of an interesting time in the high school sports calendar. Your first game is the 15th. First home game is the 18th. We're also still in football season right now, so a few of your guys aren't with the team. What kind of the challenge of this crossover season, and what are you kind of hoping, especially just early in the season, to see from your team?
Yeah, I look at things a little differently. I'm grateful that the football program is having the success that it is. I'm the biggest supporter of Coach Walsh and what they're doing out on the field. And while we have 3 players, Ian Kelly, Mason Hollinsworth, and Sam Suddiff, that are out there on the football field, I look at that as a blessing because they're going through some tough stuff. They're going to be learning winning ways, and they're going to bring those winning ways to our team whenever that so be. I hope it's after the Mercedes-Benz, but at whatever point in the season they join us, it just allows for other guys to step up and be present during those earlier season games. But nothing but support and love for that football program.
Yeah, and so you've talked about some scheduling this year, scheduling some bigger schools, some good competition. You've got a great schedule this year, a game, State Farm Arena, Thanksgiving Showcase. What are some of your kind of favorite parts of the schedule this year? What are you looking forward to in this kind of long season ahead?
Yeah, the immediate thing that comes to mind is just the differences within the Thanksgiving break. We've previously gone to Truett McConnell and just played in a 1-game event. This year we're playing in a Pickens County tournament. Pickens was a very strong team last year, so we'll open up with them. You play Darlington was the team that knocked us out last year, the first round of the state playoffs. And then we also have Chattahoochee, so that's a 6A school. Regardless of how that program has been, it's going to be a tough test for us early in the season. You mentioned the State Farm game. We've been blessed to be invited to be a part of the Court of Dreams program, where we'll be playing another 6A school in River Ridge. And then we go down to Florida. We'll play in Orlando against 2 teams over Christmas break. That is an invite opportunity that we accepted, and just looking forward to that opportunity to play against 2 teams from Florida.
Yeah, and we're talking about a lot of the great trips and some of the outer region games, specifically focusing on inside the region. We got a huge region. A region that's very strong. We finished about kind of middle of the pack last year with some very close games down the stretch. What are you looking forward to about region play this year and being able to face a lot of really good competition in the heart of the season?
Yeah, I think across the state, our region is known as the region of death. and it's called the Region of Death for a reason. So you have teams that will be representative in that Final Four that are going to come from our region. So we did finish at middle of the pack. There was a team just ahead of us in Mount Perrin that made a Final Four run. So why not us with regards to that? We're the team now, and I think the confidence is there within the players that if we do what we do when we touch the floor, then other teams need to worry about us. Not to say anything, we respect everybody, but the style of play and how we play as a team and play together, when all things are clicking, the top of our region, the bottom of our region, we're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and you were talking about the kind of difference between being like a coach-led and a player-led team, and the fact that we have a lot of older players on the team this year. How have you kind of noticed the leadership from some of the more experienced guys, how it's kind of manifested so far earlier in the season? Yeah,
we end our practices with like communication circle, so everybody locks arms and I pose a question to them. So this week we did an unexpected gratitude, so not just trying to pat your buddy on the back of giving gratitude to him within our circle, but some unexpected gratitude. And Lofton Brown, who was more of a leader by action in previous years, has now stepped into a senior role of being a leader, being an encourager, being a competitor. And then you have Connor Wynn, who's a sophomore, but I don't care how old someone is, he's a dream kid to coach. He brings energy every day. He brings leadership, and he's just a spark plug for us. So when you talk about the 5 seniors within their leading, and then you throw Connor in as a sophomore, again, we throw the ages out, and I expect everybody to lead, and I've been encouraged by what I've been seeing so far.
Yeah, so in terms of on the floor, obviously when you have different personnel in a year, you want to kind of play to your strengths. But what is, in general, are your kind of non-negotiables or kind of the foundations of how you want a basketball team to be playing?
So our foundation is defense, toughness, rebounding, so DTR. So that's a non-negotiable. That is something that can travel. That's something that's here on the home or on the road. So defense, toughness, rebounding. And then we play fundamentally fast. So we're ball movement, player movement, positionless, which is a cliche term in basketball right now, but we truly we don't have your standard height where we're going to intimidate anybody with any height, but with our speed and fundamentals and just how that ball moves. The ball does not care who scores it, so we just have everybody embracing that role and hoping that we have 6 double-figure scorers rather than one guy going for 20 to 30.
Yeah, and lastly, talking about the program in general, you've made a real big emphasis not just on the varsity team, but going all the way down through the middle school of really building a program that gets to the middle school and the high school. So we'll talk about how you've been able to try to expand this program and improve the program as a whole over the past few seasons.
Yeah, I'd say that if someone was going to ask about me, they'd tag me as a program builder, which made this opportunity at Whitefield Academy very intriguing for me. We have program practices like we'll have today, so 6th graders through 12th graders will be on the practice court. We'll have a culture day on Saturday where we'll go 9 to 12. I'm actually going to have the parents come out from 9 to 10 and be run through some of our drills and have some fun with that. But then I've implemented the WolfPack Basketball Academy as well. So 2nd graders through 8th graders that want to develop, want to play some live action 3-on-3 and just get better. It's just there's a curriculum in place now and a program that if you just buy into wanting to work, wanting to be a part of something bigger than yourself, then the opportunity's there with Whitefield basketball.
All right, well, Coach, appreciate your time today, and best of luck as the season gets underway.
Thanks for everything you do, Jack. Appreciate you.
That's all for this week's edition of the WolfPack Sports Wire. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day today. Good luck to our cross-country team tomorrow at the state championship meet at Carrollton. Make sure to finish the week strong, and we'll catch you next time on The Wire.